So the Mishnah says here on Kuf Yudala that we saw yesterday, Heviu Lefanav. And we're missing in that space a word. We don't know, Heviu Lefanav, what did they bring? And the Rashbam says they brought Yerakos, they brought out vegetables. Okay? Lo Mavuar, he writes on line 7, Ma Heviu Lefanav. And Harei behava kama heviu lefanov al kol panim chazeres. So in the second hava they brought chazeres, but in the first hava we're not sure what they brought because it says metabel bechazeres. So he says the following on the bottom right column. Ba'ava rishona heviu lefanav rak chazeres v'davar litbol bo. So in other words, he doesn't have any other vegetable for karpas for the first tibul, so he does tibul with chazeres into, let's say, charoses according to Tosfos, or into meimelech according to the Rashbam. Fine. Hikshu at Tosfos, lomalo pirish ma heviu lefanav. Why does the Mishnah tell us, as the Rashbam interprets in Yerakos, it doesn't say heviu lefanav chazeres or heviu lefanav Yerakos. V'nira kepirish Rabbeinu Tam, pirish, I think it's Rabbeinu Chananel, heviu lefanav Shulchan. But rather it means they brought him a table. What's that about? So in the previous Mishnah they recited Kiddush, and now they're bringing the table after Kiddush. What's on the table? Chazeres. So according to Rashi, according to Rashbam, Heviu lefanav means they brought, in a case where he has other vegetables, Yerakos. If he has no other vegetables, chazeres. And they brought the zaltwasa, whatever they brought. And then when the Mishnah says in the Sefer, heviu lefanav matzah v'chazeres v'charoses, and after all, they already brought out chazeres and maybe even charoses. So according to Rashi and the Rashbam, it would say that the Hemshech HaMishnah might restam b'nei Adam. In other words, the Mishnah is now talking about a case where he has other Yerakos. And in the first Havah, they bring him a Yerek. They bring him Meimelach and Chometz for Tibul. And the Mishnah says that even if he doesn't have a Yerek, he'll do Tibul with Charoses. I'm sorry, with Chazeres, I meant to say. And the next Mishnah, next part of the Mishnah is talking about Stam B'nei Adam. They have another Yerek. But nevertheless, they have to bring him Chazeres. Okay. Now he writes, Shitas Rashi Rashbam, Davash Nia de Mastisani Kodem Akiris HaShulchan. Okay. I'm just looking for, Shitas HaTosfos. So we're on now page Kuf Ayin Tes. Tosfos Kosvu, on the bottom right here, that on the first round they brought a Shulchan. And we can assume that whatever they needed was on the Shulchan. Now he quotes the Tosfos Heviu lefanav Matzah, which is the next to last Tosfos on the Amud. he says that the Avar Rishona Eviu Lefanav Hakol Panim Matzah. So what was on the Shulchan that they brought out for the first tibul? There was matzah. Lefisha Aku HaShulchan Lefnei Misha Omer Agada, the Osas say there, Kitani Lefanav Matzah. So Tosas is assuming that they took away the Shulchan, I guess after Kiddush, in front of the person who's reciting the Agada and presenting the Seder. And now, Hevi'u Lefanav Matzah, they bring back the Shulchan. So apparently, Tosas understands that the word Shulchan does not have to be written explicitly in the Mishnah. It's understood that when you have the word Hava, Hava means bring out the table, especially in light of the fact that Tosas says that they were Oker the Shulchan, they took it away, and now they bring it back. But according to Rashi, that the Hava means that they brought out Yerakos, that it should have said, hey, view in front of Yerakos. There's no way we could have guessed that it was Yerakos. Now, on the left column, he quotes Tosfos, "Umiyad ksha okrim machzirin lefanav." The Tosfos is saying that immediately after we take away the table, we bring it back. Right? Each person had his own table, and we're talking about the table in front of the Omer HaGada. So we take away his table and we bring it back. So why are we bringing back the table? We're not ready to eat the meal. We're not yet ready to eat the matzah. Tosas says on the bottom of the page, "Umiyad kisha okrim," immediately after they take away the table, machzirin lefanav v'matzah v'mor olav. They want the matzah and the mor to be on the table. Shari tzorach lomar ba'agada matzah zu and mor zeh. Lechem oni sha'onim olav dvarim harbin. Now, wait a second. We're way before the eating of the matzah. We're not ready for the eating of the matzah. And yet Tosfos insists that we have to bring out the matzah on the table in order to recite the Haggadah. V'hinei tzarich bir, keivan shetam hachzara kodem seuda hu k'dei lomar matzah zu umar zeh lomar machzer b'yad. It seems premature to bring back the table. Sheyachzer kodem amiras matzah zu umar zeh. The Tosfos is implying that for the entire course of the Haggadah, from the beginning, even way before we get to matzah, we need to put the matzah on the table. Why? Because at some point we're going to say matzah zu. Yeah, but we're not going to get to matzah zu until way later on. And the Rambam says, Machzer HaShulchan lefanav v'yomer Pesach zeh. Right? The clear indication of the Rambam is that we're only bringing the Shulchan when he has to say Pesach zeh. Whereas Tosfos says, not like the Rambam who's willing to delay the Achzaras HaShulchan, Tosfos wants the Achzaras HaShulchan immediately. V'tzarich lomar desfila the Tosfos she'ein roi lahafsik be'emtza Haggadah ba'avas HaShulchan. We're not going to take a break break up the continuity of reciting the Haggadah by saying, hey, it's time to bring the Shulchan. Therefore, let's bring it before we even begin the Haggadah. And Machziras HaShulchan Kodem Amiras Manish Tana. See, I would have said it a little differently. Not that we're trying to avoid a hefsek. I don't know if that's an issue. Why would it be a hefsek? If you have to bring out the Shulchan in order to recite Matzah Zu, I don't know if that's a hefsek. But I would say that the entire Haggadah should be recited with the matzah on the table. As we say in the Haggadah, V'shoshesh matzah umara munachim ufanecha. So the Sipur Yitzis Mitzrayim is a Sipur on the matzah. And as the Gemara says, lechem oni sha'onim olav dvarim harbe. So we need the olav, and if we want to get the matzah on the table. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the Gemara now. Actually, we didn't finish the Mishnah officially on Daf Kuf Yud Daled. And the Mishnah goes on and says, this is the Havah Shniya, the second Havah, Avi Lefan of Matzah, the Chazeres, the Charoses, Ushnei Tavshili. So again, he ate the Yerek of Tibul Rishon, and now they bring out the Matzah, they bring out the Chazeres, and the Charoses. And he writes here in the Masechet that B'shas Hamiras Hagod Tzorich Shiyu Hamatzav Amor Munachim Lefanam. Oh, that sounds a little bit closer to what we wanted to suggest. He's not saying that there's a problem of a hefsek. And Shnei Tavshilu. So if you take a look at footnote number Mem Beis, he gives two explanations for bringing out Shnei Tavshilin. Now, he summarizes this question that we touched on earlier. It says, with regard to the first Havah, Heviu Lefanov, it doesn't say exactly what they brought him. Das Rashi v'Rashbam, Shavah Rishonim Eviim Lefanov Yerakos. And Havah Shniya, after the Tibul Rishon, is we bring him the matzah, the morar, and the charoses. So why did it mention the word Yerakos? It says Hevi Lefanov. It doesn't say what they brought. He says Mitchilak Shemevim Lefanov Yerakos Litibul Rishon Shiyasa is Ein Tzarch Lefarit Mamavim Lo. Dai B'Lashonos Metabel B'Chazeres. Vanu Mevinim Sheviu Lo Chazeres V'Dovar Sheyitbol Bo. Right? It says Yitbol B'Chazeres. So we know that for sure they're bringing out Yerakos, which is the Chazeres. And where are you going to dip it? You're going to dip it in wherever you dip it. So any tibul is okay. That's the Rashbam. Now, in the second Havah, he's not eating anything until after the Haggadah. So you have to tell me what has to be brought out for the time right from the beginning of the Miras Haggadah. In the first, it says Chazeres. So obviously, they brought out a Yerek and something to be Tovel Bo. So we'll call it Meimela or Chometz. Then we get to Das HaTosfos, Shebeshtei Avos Heviu Lefonavis HaShulchan. And even on the first Havah, when they brought out the Shulchan, there was matzah on the Shulchan. Now, why do we have to bring the Shulchan out? And not only that, we bring it out twice. And the answer is because there's an Akiras Shulchan after the Tibul Rishon. And this requirement of Akiras Shulchan is going to be mentioned in the Gemara later on, Adaf Kuf Tes Vav Amid Beis. So why is there a second Havah of the Shulchan? So the answer is because there's an Akiras Shulchan after the Tibul Rishon. So Eviu Lefanov, they brought in the Shulchan for Tibul Rishon. Then they were Oker the Shulchan, and then Eviu Lefanov again. They brought back the Shulchan, but now what's on the Shulchan? Chazeres and Matzah. Why do they have to bring a second time? Meaning you had to be Oker the Shulchan and then bring about, bring back the Shulchan. So he says, Mishum mitzvah, lakar lefonavis hashulchan lachar tibul rishon. Okay, then, so that's something that we want to emphasize here. Okay, I don't have a pencil, or maybe I do have a pencil. So we're making note of this mitzvah. Lakar milofonavis hashulchan liachar tibul rishon. That's based on a Gemara later on. So the Tana is not going to say Heviu lefonav a second time, because this is the second time they bring out the Shulchan, because they were Oker the Shulchan after the first Tibul. Now, why does the Shulchan have to be brought back before he begins the Haggadah? And the answer is, as we saw before in Tosfos, Matzah zu Morazeh. And that's what we saw in the Amudei Hod. Why are they bringing out the matzah and the morah for matzah zu morazeh at the beginning of the Haggadah? After they're not going to get to matzah zu morazeh until the end of the Haggadah. Now he has the Rambam. And it seems that the entire Mishnah is one Havah. And they bring him the Shulchan, and there's Morah, and another Yerek, there's Matzah, there's Charoses, and two Tavshilin. This is all on the Shulchan. And the Seder begins with Tibul Rishon, and the Shulchan already has everything that's necessary for the entire Seder. And after Tibul Rishon, we're going to be Oker the Shulchan, and we're going to only bring it back when we're ready for Matzah zu. So I don't understand. What does he mean here when he says, Kol Mishnah Hava Achasi? When he says later on that after Tibul Rishon there's an Akiris HaShulchan, so how can he say this Hava Achas? I think what he means by Hava Achas maybe is that everything is on the Shulchan. We're not changing anything on the Shulchan, but we're going to bring it out twice. Then he writes the Meiri, Shebishtei avos mevim lefonav esakara, sheba munachim advarim shehu zakuk lahem. All right, so far that sounds like the Rambam. El shebavar rishon lo haya basal es hayerek hanitzach letibul rishon. Ki im chazeres ubavar shniya yibasal kol dvarim sheyizdake lahem mikan v'el. Not sure what he means here. He says the Avos Rishona did not have a Yerek, but it only had Chazeres. Okay. Then the Mishnah says the following. Afal pisha ein charoses mitzvah. We're going to bring out the charoses, even though there's no mitzvah to eat the charoses. And the Gemara is going to explain, so why are you bringing out charoses if there's no mitzvah? But then the Mishnah quotes another day of Rabbi Lazar Reb Tzaddik, Omer mitzvah. There is a mitzvah to eat the charoses. And he quotes in the footnote number Mem Hey that according to the Rambam Pirush Mishnayos, Rabbi Lazar Reb Tzadok will require a bracha asher kidsharim mitzvos v'tzivaro al achilas charosas, because there's a mitzvah to eat charosas. But the Rambam in Chometz U'Matzah, afil Rabbi Lazar Reb Tzadok ein mevarchan al charosas. So it's interesting that the Rambam on the one hand holds like Rabbi Lazar Reb Tzaddik that there is a mitzvah to eat charosas, but on the other hand he leaves out the bracha, according to Rambam in the Mishnah Torah. Why don't we make a bracha? So he quotes Rabbeinu Manoach, Shemei acher shacharosas tfeilo lemorah, ein mevarchen aleh b'fnei atzma. So on the one hand, there is a mitzvah of achilas charosas, but it's tfeilo lemorah. Doesn't deserve its own bracha. Kishem shemevarchem rak al netilas lulav, the ein maskira shar shloshes minim shebelulav. Neshem tfelin elav v'kulim nikroim al shmo. So it's very strange. I mean, it's very ambiguous. You have a mitzvah of charosas, but you don't make a bracha on it because it's tefillah. I guess what he's saying is that you never eat the charosas per se. We can only dip in the charosas. Yes, so why is charosas a mitzvah? What does that mean? It's a mitzvah. And he doesn't get a bracha, but it's a mitzvah. And since it's not eaten as a separate entity, then it doesn't get a bracha. Then the Mishnah says, Migdash. Remind me, please, I think in Hare Kedem, there's some discussion about the Ramam Shita in Charoses. I don't have it with me here. I have it in my house. Migdash. So when the Migdash was alive and active, Hayimavim lefan of Gufo Shel Pesach. Right, so they ate the yerek, and then they would bring out the Gufo Shel Korban Pesach. And now we turn to Kuf Yud Daled Amid Beis. Amrei Shlokish. So meres from our Mishnah Metabel Chazeres at Shemagila Parpesa Pas. In other words, he doesn't have any vegetables for the first tibul. He only has Chazeres, and then he's going to do a second tibul with Chazeres after he eats the matzah. His mitzvah strichas kavana. You must assume that mitzvahs need kavana. Kevan de lo beidon chiyuva demara hudi achale. Right, he's eating chazeres in the tibul rishon. He's not yet ready for the mitzvah of achilas mara. V'bor priadamu di achale. V'dilma lo chavin lemar. Hilkach boile mehedelat bule l'shem mar. I'm not sure why it says Hilkach boile mehedelat bule. I don't know what's the emphasis here on lat bule. He's got to eat the mara. L'shem mitzvahs mara. The Isa Gadak mitzvah lo boy kavana lamalach trei tibule v'tavel be chada zimna. If you're going to say the mitzvah lo boy kavana, so he already ate the chazeres in the first tibul. Why does he need a second achil of chazeres? It must be because mitzvah srichas kavana, and in the first tibul he didn't have kavana for the mitzvah of mara. So this, is a famous sugya about mitzvah srichas kavana or ein srichas kavana. And he's saying that if you hold mitzvah ein srichas kavana, then he was yotze already as achilas mara on the first round. Why is it necessary for him to eat a mara a second time around? But the answer is mitzvah srichas kavana, and he doesn't have kavana in the second round. I mean, say he doesn't have kavana in the first round. So if you hold mitzvah saying srichas kavana, he was yotzi already his achilas chazeros on the first round. Why does he have to read it on the second round? But if you hold mitzvahs srichas kavana, then he didn't have kavana in the first round because he realizes that he should be eating his mara later on after the matzah. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just wondering out loud, when he ate the first chazeres, did he have in mind that he's not going to be yotze the mitzvah of chazeres? Is he aware of the fact that he doesn't want the mitzvah of chazeres?
I mean, generally you try to eat less than the share that you need for when you
Less
eat
than the
karpas.
kazayas. Right, because we're gonna be choshesh that mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. Against Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish is holding mitzvah tzrichas kavana. So let him eat as much of the morer as he wants. But if we're holding mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana, then he's got to eat less than a kazayas. So the Gemara rejects this and says, no, mimai. There's no proof that mitzvah tzrichas kavana, dilma li'olam mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavana. And when he eats the chazeres in the first tibul, he was yotze his mitzvah mar. Udekama trei tibuli. Yeah, what about the brach on the mar? That's what confuses me. Yes. Til miliola mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavan. Udekama trei tibule lomali. So then he was yotze already with the first tibul. And the answer is he needs a second tibul ki echi de lehevia kereliti nokos. Okay. So let's take a little bit of a break now. And I'm going to relocate. Would you want to start Sanhedrin at perhaps at 10:30? Does that work out for you?
10:30 is okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going to close down and then we'll reopen it later, okay?
Okay.
I thank you.